Hello, I'm Manuel Lugo, a journalism student at Kennesaw State University. Today we're going to be talking about election integrity, a topic that's at the heart of the 2024 presidential election. Both Republican and Democratic voters here in Georgia have raised concerns about how elections are conducted. We're going to start by hearing from voters and a candidate, and then later we'll bring in insights from an election expert. He will help us understand what's happening behind the scenes. For now, let's begin with the concerns from the Republican voters. Many feel that the election system is vulnerable to fraud, especially after the 2024 presidential election. The main issues involve absentee ballots, voting machines, and questions about who is eligible to vote. Ricardo Williams is a Republican voter from Buckhead. Here, he shared his concerns about election security.
I'm almost positive that, election fraud took place. There's footage of people dropping off. I don't know if you're familiar with kind of the people that are scamming and doing fraud. They're essentially pulling up to ATMs, with masks on and dropping checks and pulling them out. It's the same thing that was happening with the absentee ballots and mail-ins. People were literally pulling up with masks on and dropping them off. And that's concerning.
Ricardo also touched on concerns about non-citizen voting, which he believes affect election outcomes.
I think that folks who, have not been registered should not be able to vote. I think IDs is going to be important. I resent the idea of people saying, people of color can't get IDs. And I don't think that that's true at all. I think that, there's Black people have no issue obtaining IDs. And the only people that are really affected by this are the illegal, undocumented people. So, if they want to participate in our elections, they definitely need to be tax-paying citizens and need to be citizens.
Next, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Sam Brown Parks, a Republican candidate for the Georgia House of Representatives, also in Buckhead. She echoed similar concerns. She's especially worried about the irregularities she noticed in Fulton County during the 2020 election.
So I will not use the word fraud because I didn't have firsthand information, and I feel like the media loves to use the word fraud.
Right.
I will say that there were definitely firsthand evidence of inconsistencies, whether they were accidental or intentional, I don't know. So I will also add that, the results of Fulton were contested because there were so many obvious irregularities. You don't simply just quit counting ballots. You don't simply just say that you have certified an election without counting the ballots and double checking them. And to have sheets of paper that supposedly came in the mail that were never folded, it's all suspect, and it could have been easily addressed with a true on-site audit at that time.
Now let's hear from Democratic voters who are more concerned about changes in Georgia's election system. Specifically, they worry about the balance of power on local election boards. Currently, the Democratic Party is suing Georgia for its changes in the election system. Amy Powers, a Democratic voter from Cherokee County, expressed concerns about the shift in her county's Board of Elections, which now has a Republican majority.
And so it's unbalanced. And so when we have write-in candidates like Tracy Verhoeven, Tracy has a name where we fear that if a person doesn't spell it right, that vote for that specific, 11 election, it could throw out the vote for that specific election. So we don't have, there's not a lot of faith in their ability to use common sense or weaponizing it. They didn't put an E in Tracy's name, so that's not the candidate, I feel like that could be used to weaponize in favor of a Republican over a Democrat. Okay. That there's not partiality.
Tracy Verhoeven is a Democratic write-in candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives. She's running in the same district as Amy. She's running against Democratic candidate Katie Stamper, which Democrats believe her to be a Republican in disguise.
Katie is a fake Dem. She's a libertarian. And I believe she's running kind of under the Project 2025, a Project 2025 plan is the word I use. So Katie's not a real Dem. I've actually spoken to her. She has no real Democratic policies that she supports. She's anti-Kamala Harris. And she actually posted on her Twitter that she is against Kamala Harris. So that right there is another huge red flag.
Despite her concerns, Amy remains hopeful about the election process.
I'm fairly confident. I have to trust that our elections process, whether our candidate wins or not, has to be fair, because Cherokee County election officials, they could be our neighbors, you know. We could be their neighbors whether we agree with who they're voting for or not. There needs to be some level of respect and dignity for the process.
With these concerns in mind, let's turn to Joseph Kirk, the elections director of Bartow County. He can help explain how Georgia's election system works and address the issues raised by voters. Kirk also responded to the concerns about voting machine security and absentee ballot fraud.
A military voter who is overseas or someone from our country that's living overseas can have a ballot sent to them through a secure portal. Because when we get it, we have to actually transfer those votes onto a ballot that can be scanned. That's done with a 3-person bipartisan team, a Democrat, Republican, and a representative on my board to duplicate that. And if they were duplicating those, there's no reason to fold them before you scan them.
Gotcha. Additionally, on the issue of non-citizens voting, according to the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, states require identification or a social security number to verify voter identity, meaning non-citizens cannot vote without serious consequences, such as deportation. Finally, Kirk addressed Amy's concerns about the impartiality of local election boards.
You know, if folks have concerns about the process, there is an opportunity right now to be involved, to see this as it's happening, and to feel confident as we move through the process.
Kirk works to ensure transparency and security in the election process, and he believes that public education is key to maintaining trust in the system.
Since there's not a lot of knowledge out there about those processes, there's a lot of creative ideas for how to create an issue that may not actually exist. We never educate our public on the nuts and bolts of what I do for a living. I'm not going to say that the security has no use at all, but I think its main purpose is to make folks feel more confident about the process. They don't necessarily understand the process. And a lot of what I talk about these days comes back to the fact that we don't talk about this in school.
Kirk also addressed Dr. Sam Brown Park's remarks of the vote count stoppage in Fulton County. He mentioned how the process was for him in the 2020 elections.
But I remember, this is the primary in 2020, being up with my staff at, I can't remember what time in the morning. At this point, the world's getting kind of hate. I've been up for a little over 24 hours, I'm pretty sure. And we were more likely to make mistakes. We were more likely to have issues, and things went slower as a result. I want to say in that primary, we received word from the state to go ahead and stop for the night, go home, come back, finish the next day. We chose to keep going because we're almost done. There was a local race we wanted the results for. But when you're managing a huge process like this, it was so many moving parts, and when your employees are getting exhausted, well, perhaps the best decision is to take a break. You know, and come back with fresh set of eyes, a little bit of rest, and keep going. One of the cardinal rules for observing an election process is you're there until they turn off the lights and lock the door. And I encourage folks who are observing, if they have the time that they can stay until the lights are out and the door's locked. Just because they say they're going to leave doesn't mean you should leave. Watch them shut down and then leave. And had that been done, had people actually stayed, they would have known about the change in plan. We wouldn't be talking about this. But unfortunately, they were not familiar with those kind of procedures.
Both parties in this case want the same thing. They want a secure and fair election. And there are steps being taken to ensure that that happens.
So what I'm hoping is, as we work with the legislature, I'm hoping that the conversation about QR codes and the method of marking and tabulation dies down a little bit as we develop new technologies.
Election integrity is a major concern for many voters. But as we heard from Joseph Kirk, there are already efforts being made to improve the process and ensure that every vote counts. I'm Manuel Lugo, a journalism student at Kennesaw State University, and I hope that this discussion has provided some clarity as we approach the 2024 elections. Thank you.